Hello and welcome to Theatre and Tonic, where I'm joined by Gary Clarke. Now, Gary, before we start, I realised yesterday it's been like 11 years since I last worked with you.
Is it that long? Was it around the Olympics?
Yeah, around games
Time.
time. I worked it out yesterday and I was like, where have those 11 years gone?
That's like a decade. Yeah, time flies, when you're having fun.
Yeah, absolutely does. So I know a little bit about you, but for those who don't know a little bit about you, can you kind of just give us a brief introduction to who you are and what it is that you do?
Yep. So I am from a really small coal mining village called Grimethorpe, which is famous for its brass bands and famous for Brass Stuff, the film. Um, it's a mining village. The whole village was connected to the coal mine. So I grew up around that kind of community. I was born in 1980, so I'm a kind of Thatcher's child. So at a very early age, I was, I was witness to and involved in politics because of the miners' strike of 1984. So that kind of shaped me into being politically charged. And then from there, I kind of went on to train as a dancer and went on to study at the Northern School of Contemporary Dance. And since then, I've been working as a dancer, but also as a choreographer. And what I tend to try and do is to make work which comments on working class culture. So kind of looking back at my history and upbringing and trying to understand that and trying to weave that into storytelling. That's kind of what I do.
So obviously you also have your company, which is where this work has kind of come from. So what did you kind of want your company built around, and kind of what dances were you looking for when you started building it?
Well, I guess when I started to work in the industry and I started to watch performances, I realized that contemporary dance can be very elitist or too abstract or can almost alienate people. I think it's quite an abstract art form to get your head around. And I guess I wanted to carve out a space that almost kind of smashed those preconceptions. And I wanted to see if I could create work which could be accessible for everyday people. Like, can I get, people like my community into a theatre to see contemporary dance? Like, and what would that take? What would that need? So my work and my company is built on all of those kind of principles. I like telling stories. Is that really loud? Can you hear that beat? No. I like telling stories, working class stories. Then I want that to kind of reflect through my work. And the dancers that I work with, my performers are amazing. Like I work with people that are really open and generous, that can work really hard. Like there's something about my work which is about hard work and graft and kind of pushing through stuff and survival. And that's really got to come through the physicality. So there's a real commitment and a dedication to the work and what it's trying to do. And I'm very proud and pleased to say that my company carry all of those traits.
And you kind of touched on this, but obviously you grew up in the Thatcher era, and a lot of politics was going on around that time, and obviously there's a lot going on in the present day. So do you feel like your piece really sits within that and kind of can create conversation around that now? Is it more relevant to the times now as well?
Absolutely. I mean, within the first act of coal, we look at the downfall of industrial Britain, and then we see our community cast play the role of ex-coal miners, and they're all on the dole. And there's a beautiful speech that we collected lots of different statements and testimonies from interviews from ex-coal miners, and they're talking about the cost of living and the fact that they can't afford anything, and there's young kids without jobs and drugs and alcoholism and abuse is kicking in. So it's about struggle, financial struggle, and purpose. And I think when you look at what's happening today with the cost of living crisis and energy prices and the amount of people now, having to go to food banks and be fed, and some of these NHS nurses, I think times are really hard for a particular group of people. So unfortunately, although I want to say that we've progressed, I think that we've got a long way to go.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously this new production is kind of like a sequel to Cole, isn't it? So have you took what you got from Cole and just developed it further?
Yeah, so the story came from, we had a post-show discussion once with Cole, which was always very well attended and very animated. And a hand went up in the audience, and it was my brother. I've got an older brother who's an illegal raver. And he said to me, he said, Gary, the story's not over. He said, what about us? Meaning me and him. He said, like, there's another story to tell after Cole. So straight away I saw a sequel and I thought I need to honour that. And so I started to look at what happened to all of the mining towns and villages around the country 10 years later after the coal mines closed, and then the rise of the illegal rave culture, and then how those two things fit together, because they're very, very interlinked, they're very entwined, and we never really think that they are, but they absolutely are. The illegal rave movement, like we took over all these abandoned workspaces and factories and mills that once had industry and work, was suddenly became like a home for this youth community that was so broken. It was a way of coming together. It was a way of escaping these kind of grey realities through music and dance. And, it brought people together and it gave people purpose against what was a very grey landscape. And then what happened as a result of the police crackdown and the government crackdown was that these youths then, I say these youths, I'm one of them, fought back. So the parallel between the kind of miners' strike and the rave culture and, the freedom to party movement that, thousands and thousands of young people took over Trafalgar Square for the right to dance. And so these youths were suddenly politically charged. And then we saw the crackdown of that, like we did with the miners' strike. So the parallel between the two is so rich and entwined. And I think Wasteland, it attempts to try and look at that and how, and the why rather than the what. So why the illegal rave culture existed in the first place. So Wasteland is very bleak at the beginning. It takes us on a real journey. So we really understand the landscape that these young people were living in. So then it contextualizes rave. As an audience, you can empathize with the reason why it existed.
Yeah. And obviously you have a bit of work there as well with like a community cast of like pitman singers kind of thrown in there as well. So what made you want to add that, and why do you think it's important to have that in the mix of such a really important piece of work?
Because I'm dealing with real life and I'm dealing with real life stories, and I always try and search for truth and authenticity. And it felt like if I was going to try and do that, then it was really important that I brought in the people that were directly affected by the issues in the work. So with Cole, we searched to work with women that had been miners' wives around the time of the miners' strike and that understood the fight and the struggles and wanted to contribute their story to the show and stand on stage and tell the world their story again as a way of continuing that legacy. And it's the same with Wasteland. We try and attempt to bring in, where possible, men that are either ex-coal miners or ex-steel workers or some sort of connection with the mining industry, to remember those times and to sit on stage and to be the voice of 1,000 miners and to represent such a huge community, broken community of the 80s. So to have that on stage, both visually and sonically, is really important. And I also guess it's about us trying to be open and generous with our work and our process. Like, I feel like we want to provide opportunities for people to build their skills and their confidence and their trust in the arts and performance. So we've got a really robust model that we take our community cast through, and we love them dearly, and we really try to hold on to them and create a space for them to be heard and to be seen. So our community element is really important, and we talk about real communities on professional stages. So we really try to embed professional practice with what we do with them, and allow them to understand quality, because a lot of them have never been on stage before. It's the first time they've ever experienced it. And suddenly they're in a spotlight singing these amazing miners' hymns. It can be very daunting for people. So we have a beautiful way of bringing all of that together and allowing them to sit with confidence alongside our professional cast, and they do so brilliantly. So it's absolutely integral. It goes right through the bloodline of the work, our community engagement. It's not just an add-on, it's integral.
Yeah. And obviously, people might want to come and see Wasteland, but be like, oh, I haven't seen Cole. So do you think they'll be able to watch this piece without having any kind of knowledge of Cole and still get a full experience?
Absolutely, and we contextualize it all, so it's very explicit. So we have archive video footage that we see, beautiful footage of the miners' strike. We then see the downfall of the mining industry and the loss of that. The songs that we sing are very explicit in their lyrics, so we tell the story. So for those people that have never seen Cole, don't worry. It is a sequel, but it absolutely can stand alone as an independent individual work. And I guess for people that just know about the miners' strike and what happened, that's enough information. So anyone that maybe wants to come and see Wasteland, just do a bit of research about the miners' strike and then it'll all make sense.
Brilliant. And final question for you then. So for those that are interested, what can they expect from Wasteland that is unlike any other dance production?
Wow. Well, we have a full-on rave on stage, all dressed in 90s gear. It's electrifying. It's dance taken at a brainstorming pace. It pulls on archive movements from the time. There's lasers. There's a light show. There's amazing kind of loud music. We've got these amazing video graphics, and all of that is mixed in with the opposite side of that, which is the last miner, so the loss of the industry. So on stage, I'm not going to give too much away, but we constantly see the tension between these two generations as a reminder, and I think it does so in a very, very beautiful way. So people need to be expected to be moved. You know, it's very moving, it's very touching, sometimes funny, sometimes sad, energetic. You know, people sometimes get up and dance in the audience because of the music, because it's more politically charged. People start kind of shouting in. So it's a real kind of immersive work. It really kind of gets into the gut of an audience, and should make you feel like you can have a voice. You know, it's to be seen and to be heard. It's a call to action.
Brilliant. I absolutely love the sound of it, Gary, and I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for your time to chat with me today.
Great, thank you.